The Bounty Hunters. The soft tones of classical Zen soul-style melodies ring out as he towels off the last of the water from his scales. His face is unrecognizable. He had to use human genetic codes to sidestep so many constraints and the nearly unending locks upon his prison. It has affected him. His muzzle has been blunted, his face is wider, his coloration darker and with mildly ruddy hues. He's just thankful he hasn't begun to grow some kind of fur or hair. It could look pleasant upon the right person, but he didn't want to be that person, ever. The soft string instruments and gentle singing help calm him as much as the fact he can stand. There's a banging at the door. "Hey, it's almost time for that place to collapse. Was wondering if you wanted a live viewing?" The immensely deep voice of one of his rescuers asks. "Of course, just a moment," he says, and it takes only a flicker of will. He is dry, dressed, and the air in the small bathing room is clean and clear. He opens the door to find that the human has an eyebrow raised in curiosity. It is as much a relief as a mystery to struggle when it comes to sensing the emotions and desires of these humans. "In a hurry?" the huge man, Mr. T apparently, asks. "Yes, I do want to see that wretched place die after all." Ivan agrees as he picks up the communicator he had been so kindly given and turns off the music. The sound of a moderately obscure language being sung softly isn't so comforting to those that don't know it. "What was that song about?" the large human asks as he gestures for Ivan to follow. "In a word, perseverance," Ivan says, tucking away the device in the pocket of the oversized garment he had been given. Too large for Kobe-sized clothing, but too small for human-scale clothing. Still, it's far better to have too much clothing than too little. Like most things beyond poison in the body or wounds of the flesh, it's simply better to have too much rather than too little. "Ah, Mr. T, Mr. Grace, so good of you both to join us. We've been observing and recording the axiomatic breakdown around the station," Captain Schmidt says as they enter the bridge. There on the main screen is the image of the moon and mining station. "Are you sure the copy can't escape?" Ivan asks somewhat nervously. It would be very, very hard to force him back into an egg again in any circumstance, but the fact it's happened once already in his life is enough to have him nervous about such a person continuing to exist in any capacity. "We've got a lot of jamming in the area, and the mining station already had most of the infrastructure around it already salvaged," Captain Schmidt assures him. "She's already tried to move out with some emergency pods and shuttles, but despite the damage the chain breaker here has taken, we've still got enough sensors and firepower to reduce it all to slag." "I see. That makes sense. There was only a single shuttle and roughly 10 remaining escape pods in the station," Ivan says, walking up to the first railing over the area and leaning against it. It's at a height where it could be sat on by someone the size of a human. To Ivan, though, he can lean against it easily enough. "We've knocked out 12 items trying to retreat. We can assume that Eva has been attempting to jury-rig escape vehicles," Captain Schmidt says. "Speaking of," Pilot Bravo says, and there's a lance of laser fire that hits an object in the distance. "Bogey down. Good man. That makes 13 separate escape attempts," Captain Schmidt remarks. "There won't be any more. It's time," Ivan says, and there are several small alerts going up at separate stations. "Mierda! Enormous gravitational compression," Pilot Bravo exclaims as they watch the moon collapse in on itself. Sound does not carry through a vacuum, but no one has any issue whatsoever hearing the ice shatter and the metal groan as it compresses and is crushed into smaller and smaller areas. "I am not taking this ship any closer than we already are. We are just outside what seems to be an outright accretion disk." "How big is the end result going to be?" Captain Schmidt asks. "For the effect, it's reached maximum size. The end result? I'm not sure. There were some minerals and sediments left in the moon unmined, but will they be boiled away or compressed? I know the vast majority of the ice is going to liquefy and then be burned away as a gas. I've never made a black hole bigger than a millimeter across before. The fact that he has made black holes is fucking terrifying. Pilot Rico mutters and Ivan flinches somewhat. Stow it, air farce. He's a rescued civilian, not an enemy combatant, Captain Schmidt says. Yes, sir, Pilot Rico says. I've been meaning to ask, why do you all refer to each other by nicknames rather than a proper military rank or names? Ivan asks, not taking his eye away as the gravity separates the oxygen and hydrogen and the sheer heat from the friction of compression ignites, both causing a plume of heat and energy to be released from the top and bottom of the sheer crushing force of the gravity he had set off. It's outright beautiful to watch the still burning plasma being pulled into the accretion disk and swirled into the main body of the black hole. A spiral dance of fire in the middle of space with a bright purple gas giant for a backdrop. Beyond the planet, stars beyond counting, one of them a world he had intended to make his home for a time before everything went to hell. He lets out a lungful of air he hadn't been consciously holding in, and the relief is palpable. He feels like some huge infection has just been cleaned. He can almost feel the filth that had encrusted his soul thanks to that place crack and slough away. Well, that was pretty. How long will this gravity dance last? Maybe another 5 minutes? No more than 10, Ivan answers. Good. If only all our messes had so much self-cleaning involved, Captain says with a grin. Also, the nicknames have a few purposes. First off, there's no mistaking it. We've got a fair number of squad members with the same official rank, so just calling out rank is a bit much. But names have more than that. If I call our pilot, Pilot Bravo, then he knows we need to be formal. Air Farce is his field name though, so using that means I need the skilled but chaotic hotshot. Using his name of Rico or Rico Bravo means what I'm about to say next isn't military. Make sense? I suppose. Yay, but the biggest reason is we just like the nicknames. They're personal but playful. Captain Schmidt, or perhaps Pukey, says, and Ivan nods. So my biggest question at the moment is pretty simple. Oh, Ivan asks, will there be any issue from you if we swoop in? Grab whatever hyper-compressed remains are going to be left over and bring that back to Centris for study, Pukey asks. There is one issue, Ivan says as he can sense the black hole starting to decay. It's about to blow up. Without the gravity well I made, the matter left behind will outright detonate. The gravity was not heavy enough to do more than get the atoms way too close together rather than cause atomic breakdown or condensation. The moment the gravity is gone, well, watch and see. Had he a clock, he couldn't have timed it any better. Just a moment after saying they should watch and see, the gravity well collapses under its own weight and detonates. The plasma on the accretion disk was beautiful, yet the explosion makes it seem like a child's drawing. Ivan wonders if the eruption of light and mass and existence itself was what the Big Bang was like. Is this a copy of the beginning of all things, when nothingness became existence? There's a shudder that goes through the entire ship, but no one says anything until after the blast wave is past. Damage report, Pukey asks. Negative, Air Farce answers. As cool as that looked, it didn't even scuff the paint. Really? Well, if you want to go into the entertainment industry, Mr. Grace, then I have to say your resume is going to look quite stellar, Pukey says, and Air Farce groans. Huh. Captain, that was god-awful, Air Farce complains. Then I've done a good job. How's the recording equipment and sensors? The boys back at the Undaunted will want to see what we just watched. It's all up and up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to put us in proper orbit around that stink ball there and get something to drink before the team meeting and our question and answer session, Air Farce says. Stink ball? What? You think argon smells? Ivan asks as he points to the bright purple world covered primarily in the noble gas. It's odorless if I recall correctly. Mr. T notes. It's a gas giant. Oh, never mind, apparently a fart joke is too highbrow for you guys. Air Farce grumps. He thinks that he's the only one allowed to disapprove of a joke. Pukey says conspiratorially to Ivan, who snorts in amusement. Oh, fuck you, Air Farce says as he finishes things off. I'm getting some damn tequila. Your crew is smaller than I expected, Captain Schmidt, Ivan says as he overlooks the entire meeting room that they had packed all of their recruits in, including the clones of his clone. He was going to have to speak to the ship's doctor on how to slow down their heightened growth rate, even if all they did was end up in full-grown bodies years ahead of time and not aging to death a quarter of the way through life. That was still going to be a massive problem down the road, especially as he has every intention of claiming them as his children, if not grandchildren, due to their actual relationship. They were another part of the absolutely enormous mess he had made, and to be honest, were the only piece he had any actual idea on how to handle, adopt, rear, treat them well, and see them off into a stable and healthy adulthood, locked, sealed, and easy compared to the scars on planet Albrith and the gaping holes in its population. Competence makes up for numbers, and automation makes up for what competence can't. Pukey answers and Ivan nods before clearing his throat. The general chatter dies, and he has everyone's undivided attention. More than a few recording devices are pointed his way as well. All right then, just to make sure we all understand each other properly, I am Ivan Grace, and I am either directly or indirectly responsible for the 400 billion lives lost on Albrith, as well as its years of fear and terror. I am here to attempt to explain myself and my involvement with this madness. I was there at the beginning and am the one who set it all in motion, but the reason why I'm only appearing now is that I spent the vast majority of this nightmare trapped and nigh helpless. Questions are encouraged, but please pay attention. Repeating myself is something I find annoying. How is it your fault? From what I saw of that hell mission, you were literally in your egg when it happened. You're not even 4 hours old. Slytherin Schmidt, aka Scaly, aka Snaky, possibly aka Wiggles, protests. That will be explained shortly. Any more questions before I begin? He asks. How did you get so tall? One of his clones asks, and he smiles. I had a bit of human help. Also, I now have quite a few human organs, but that's for my medical examination later. Ivan explains, and there's a pause in the room. 50 credits says he can stomach Air Farce's tequila, the Hat remarks. Sucker's bet, Air Farce replies as he takes a swig. That doesn't mean he's getting it, though. Right. Well, as I said, I am Ivan Grace. I am of the Reichle Meisli, and when I began to grow a deeper and deeper interest in cloning and its many, many possibilities, I realized that in order to truly understand the full scope of things and how many directions things could go in, I would need at least a second pair of hands to help out. However, having read of the numerous issues that a poorly treated clone, I deliberately made numerous differences into my child so they would be their own person, foremost among them being that the clone was female. Why would that be a problem? I've been female my whole life, and it's suited me fine. Halissa asks, and there's a few chuckles. Well, I haven't. It might have even been that. My memories did not sit well in that body and psychologically broke. Perhaps it was the physical dissonance. Maybe my adjustment of the genome from male to female caused psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies. Either way, when my clone was finished, it seemed fine at first. But what I wasn't noticing at the time was that she was paying far, far too much attention to the things she shouldn't have been. Just waiting for an opportunity. Opportunity for what? The original clone, which is an odd thing to say, mentioned things about protection and how we were ruining things before the Hollow got her. What were you, and therefore she, hoping to achieve? Pukey asks. Ascension, Ivan says simply. There are a lot of on-guard faces, and he holds up his hands in a pacifying manner. Not like the thing that happened to me. I had hoped, I still hope, that through the use of cloning technology we can iterate out genetic flaws and weaknesses in any species. Effectively, imagine if every Nagasha were a primal. Now imagine things like primal Trets, primal Cobes, primal Panceros, and Mera. Nothing is perfect, but we could all stand to be better. And I thought that through cloning technology I could prototype such a being, and then with the use of healing comas and retroviruses we could effectively upgrade a species into a greater version of itself. Laudable. What went wrong? Pukey asks, and Ivan sighs. I was injured while working at a cloning factory. Just a silly mistake, and I took boiling biofuel to the side of the face. I went through a simple healing coma, and that was when my clone struck. She removed the memory retention band and altered the coma to keep going until I was back in the egg. Then she began to work on her mad project. Ivan takes a deep breath as he considers. I was in stasis for a time. I don't know how long. And then my awareness began to expand out of my egg. By that point, it had already been modified to prevent my escape. I could not grow and hatch as myself. But I was being fed insane amounts of axiom, and the only way to stop it from shattering me was to spread it out. So I did just that, and expanded and changed. She was trying to induce a Gravia-like existence in myself for some reason. Apparently her idea of a greater being and my own diverged. And since my mind was blank and I was basically a preborn child at the time, I had no way of understanding this. Then she made a mistake. The memory retention band? Pukey asks. Exactly. She didn't want to wipe it because it was either useful for her, or she held some twisted affection for me. Either way, she decided it was too risky to keep it on Albrith and brought it to the station. The problem for her was that I was very much in the axiom at the time, albeit not in a way she expected. So when the band came into my range, I studied it, learned from it, and eventually absorbed everything inside it, regaining my memories and sense of self. But while it did make things better, they were far worse as well. Boredom, sensory deprivation, and the sheer madness of what was happening to me hit me all at once. And that's when you started actively trying to escape, which convinced her she was onto something. Yes, it also convinced her she needed help of her own, and she created the others. So in other words, you didn't do anything beyond make a single fucked up clone, and the first person she fucked over was you? Halissa asks. I wouldn't quite put it that way. Yes or no, dearie, Onyx says. Yes.